AITA for leaving my wife after she introduced me as her best friend at a hotel bar? I, a 33-year-old male, have been married to my wife, Megan, a 31-year-old female, for 4 years. We have been together for 7 in total. It was a good relationship without major red flags, just the typical American suburban life. She works in event planning. We were at this networking mixer at a hotel bar, mingling with people from her industry. I was drinking sparkling water when a guy in a wrinkled suit approached my wife. It was a classic move. He had that desperate vibe of someone trying too hard. He started flirting with her with all the charm he could muster. I was standing right there, by the way, about 3 feet away holding her coat. My wife laughed at his jokes. Well, she is polite. Then the guy asked if she was alone. I expected her to do the normal thing. Point at me, say that her husband is here, or maybe even flash the classic gesture showing the wedding ring. Standard married person protocol. Instead, she pointed at me casually and introduced me as her best friend. Best friend. I blinked. The guy looked at me, gave me the typical bro nod as if we were wingmen picking up women together or something. Then he looked back at her, now much more interested. He asked her if she was single, and here is where it gets interesting. My wife smiled at him and said she would not like to miss opportunities for anyone. I was still there holding her coat, standing like a coat rack with a pulse. The guy gave her his business card and told her to call him for a collaboration opportunity that we all knew had nothing to do with work. She took it and put it in her purse, right in front of me. When he left, she turned to me as if nothing happened and asked me if I was ready to go grab some dinner. I handed her the coat, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "Act single all you want because very soon you will be." Her face filled with confusion. She asked me what that was supposed to mean, as if she really did not understand the problem, or as if what just happened was perfectly normal behavior for a married woman. She laughed, literally laughed like I had told a joke. She said she was hungry and asked if we could go eat now. I told her I was not joking. You just denied that our marriage exists to flirt with some random loser while I held your coat. It is over. The smile disappeared. She grabbed my arm and asked if I was serious or exaggerating. She claimed she was just networking. I pulled my arm back and told her she can do all the networking she wants as a single woman, starting right now. I left the venue. She followed me, insisting that I was being dramatic and that it was just a friendly conversation. I got to my car, and she kept talking. I turned around. You literally told another man you would not miss opportunities for me while wearing your ring. That isn't exaggerating. That is having a minimum of self-respect. Try another approach. She said I was interpreting it wrong and that she was just being professional. Professional would have been introducing me as your husband. We are not going to discuss this anymore. I am going home separately. She texted me the whole way home. First apologies, then accusations that I was controlling, then apologies again. I did not answer anything. When I got home, I went straight to the home office and opened my laptop. I started looking for divorce attorneys in the area. She came in 20 minutes later, saw what I was doing, and that is when she finally understood I was not playing games. She asked if I was really looking for lawyers over a comment and asked if I was crazy. I kept scrolling through the screen. I had already found 3 good ones and was scheduling consultations for Monday. She stayed in the doorway with her arms crossed. This is ridiculous. You are throwing away 4 years of marriage because your feelings got hurt. I closed the laptop and looked at her. I am ending it because you made it clear you want to be single. I am just respecting your wishes. She argued that she never said that. You told another man you would not miss opportunities for me. It cannot be clearer than that. You want to keep your options open? Perfect. Now they are completely open. She started crying, the type of cry designed to make me feel guilty. She asked if I was really going to do this without giving her the chance to explain herself. There is nothing to explain. I heard you perfectly. I grabbed my pillow and went downstairs. She followed me, still talking, saying I was being irrational and making a big mistake that I would regret. I made up the guest bed in silence. Finally, she went back upstairs. I could hear her pacing in our master bedroom, right above me. Not for long, though. I lay there staring at the ceiling, going over everything again in my head. 4 years of marriage, 7 years together in total, finished. All because she wanted to keep her options open at a hotel bar. The craziest thing is I was not even angry anymore. It was simply over. Completely. Definitely over. But there was something eating away at me. It was not just tonight. Looking back, there were signs, small things I dismissed or ignored, red flags I painted green in my mind. The way she stayed quiet when I mentioned we were married in front of certain people, or how she posted photos of herself on social media without the ring visible. Each moment separately seemed harmless. Together, they painted a picture I refused to see. I let it go. I thought she was just being modern or independent, but tonight made it all clear. She wanted the benefits of marriage without the label. Yes, it is over. The next morning, my sister Avery called. She is 2 years younger than me and lives about an hour away. We are close enough to talk frequently, but not so much that she knows every detail of my life. She was just calling to know how the work event went last night. I hesitated whether to tell her the truth, but I thought sooner or later she would find out. I told her everything was fine and also that I was getting divorced. Silence. Then she asked what I was talking about. I gave her the summary. The hotel bar, the best friend introduction, the business card, everything. When I finished, she let out a long sigh. You are exaggerating. Megan called you her best friend, and that is not the end of the world. You are being too sensitive about this. I reminded her that my wife told another man she was single while I was there holding her coat. She dismissed it immediately, saying it was just networking and that I was acting as if my wife had cheated on me when the only thing she did was talk to a guy at a work event. I insisted that it was not like that. She responded that is exactly what happened, and that now I am throwing my marriage in the trash because my ego got hurt. I knew how that sounded. I felt my jaw tighten. I told her my ego did not get hurt. My wife disrespected me in public. She started saying I sound like one of those guys who believe women should be barefoot in the kitchen and that my wife has the right to converse without asking my permission. First, I explained to her that it is not about control, but about basic respect. Avery called me insecure. She said I was punishing my wife for being nice and professional and that it was wrong. Then she topped it off by saying that honestly, I sounded a little hostile towards women. She told me to just admit I have issues with women. I was about to hang up. I asked her if she was really calling me that right now. She kept saying that women already deal with enough things for their husbands to monitor who they talk to, and that she expected better from me. I hung up because I could not listen to her voice anymore. I sat there staring at the phone. My own sister just insulted my character. She took my wife's side without even considering my perspective. On Monday morning, I took a half day off work. I had an appointment with a divorce attorney at 10 a.m. Megan had been sleeping in the master bedroom, and I was in the guest room. We hadn't spoken since Friday night. The lawyer's office was downtown. The receptionist was professional. She made me fill out paperwork regarding name, address, date of marriage, and grounds for divorce. The attorney sat with me and asked me to explain the situation. I gave him the short version. He didn't even blink. He had probably heard worse things 1,000 times. He asked me how long I had been married, if there were children, and about shared assets. I told him, 4 years married, 7 together total, no kids, the house in both names, 2 cars, 1 each, joint checking account, and separate savings. He looked up from his notes and told me directly that this type of case, without provable infidelity, without abuse, and without major financial problems, would be a standard no-fault divorce. It could take between 6 months and a year, depending on how cooperative she was. I asked him what I had to do. He gave me a folder with the initial paperwork. I would have to file a petition for dissolution, which would start the process. She would be served the documents and would have 30 days to respond. We would also have to talk about the division of assets. I asked about the house. He explained it was marital property. I mentioned the wedding debt. She wanted everything. Venue, photographer, catering, everything. We still had about $8,000 left to pay. He said that was also marital debt and would be split equitably. We talked about 30 minutes more. He explained the timelines, the retainer fees, and what to expect. I signed some papers, wrote a check for the retainer, and walked out of there feeling like I had just taken the first real step into the void. I drove back home. Her car was in the driveway. I went in, and she was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop. She looked up when I entered and asked where I had been. I told her I was at the lawyer's office. Her face went pale. She asked me if I had really gone. I confirmed that I had already told her I would. She closed the laptop and stood up. She said it was fine, that I had already made my point, that I was angry and she understood, but that this had gone too far. She asked if we could please talk about it. I told her there was nothing to talk about. The petition would be filed by the end of the week. Then she would be officially served. "You are going to have me served like a criminal?" she asked. I explained that is how the legal process works. She started crying again, this time with real tears. She said she couldn't believe I was doing this over a stupid comment, and that I was throwing away everything we had built. "You were the one who threw it away. I am just doing the paperwork." She sat down again and held her head in her hands. She said, "I don't know what you want from me." I told her I didn't want anything from her. That was the point. I wanted out. We stayed in silence a moment. Then she looked up, and I saw the change. The tears stopped. Her jaw tightened. "Okay, but don't come crying when you realize the huge mistake you are making." I responded calmly. "I won't." The papers were filed that Friday. The lawyer called me to confirm it. She would be served the documents Monday or Tuesday at the latest by a process server. On Monday afternoon, I received the call confirming that the papers had been served to my wife that same afternoon at our house. She had signed for them. I returned from work. Her car was in the driveway when I arrived. I tried to enter and found the house locks changed. My key didn't work. I called my lawyer. He wasn't happy at all. He told me she couldn't do that it was marital property, and that I had the same right of access. He told me to call the police right now. The patrol car arrived about 20 minutes later. The officer heard my version and then went to knock on the door. My wife opened it looking completely innocent. She told him she had changed the locks because there had been burglaries in the neighborhood. For safety, she claimed. The officer looked at me and asked if my name was on the deed. I told him yes, that both names were. He looked back at her and told her, "Look, you can't lock someone out of a property that is also theirs. That is an illegal eviction. You have to give him a key or let him in." Then she crossed her arms and quite calmly blurted out that I had been threatening her. She started crying and said, "He tells me not to tell anyone. I am very scared." I swear my jaw dropped. I told the officer that was completely false. She took out her phone very fast, said she had messages as proof, and showed him something on the screen. He read it, nodded, and then told me he needed me to step aside while he resolved the situation. So I stayed standing in my own driveway while he talked to her for another 5 minutes. Suddenly, she was crying a river with real tears. The officer returned and explained the situation. She said she felt threatened. I said I had never threatened anyone, but without clear proof on one side or the other, he couldn't force her to let me in that night to avoid a domestic disturbance. I would need a court order and look for another place to sleep. I ended up in a hotel. I called my lawyer from the room and left him a voicemail explaining all this disaster. Then I called my brother Logan. He told me I could stay at his house. He, Avery, and I don't speak to our parents, but that is another story. My phone rang again. It was Avery. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She had already found out what happened. I told her, "Let me guess. My wife called you." She confirmed it, and then started saying she couldn't believe I had taken my wife to that point, and that she felt so unsafe she had to change the locks. She asked me what I had done to her. I told her directly that I hadn't done anything. My wife lied to the police. I never threatened her. Avery brought up the messages and said there was proof. I told her, "Proof of what exactly?" I never threatened her. Whatever she showed is fake or completely misrepresented. Avery even suggested that maybe I was so deep in my own version of events that I couldn't see how aggressive I had been, and that my wife was terrified of me. I told her she wasn't terrified. She was playing dirty, changing the locks to lock me out of my own house, which is illegal. Avery said it was also her house, and that if she felt unsafe, she had every right to protect herself. Then she dropped the bomb. She was going to let my wife stay at her house a few days after I could get back inside. I told her that was a matter between them, but to remember well who she was helping. She responded that she knew exactly who she was helping, a woman in need, someone who was being harassed by her husband. I told her, "Whatever helps you sleep at night." And I hung up. The next morning, my lawyer called me around 7 a.m. He said that same afternoon we were going to ask for an emergency exclusive possession order. What she did was clear retaliation and an illegal constructive eviction. The judge should grant it in a day or two. The hearing was Friday afternoon, an emergency session. My lawyer brought everything. Her lawyer tried to paint me as an aggressive and threatening guy, inventing wild stories about intimidation and control, but they had nothing. It was just her word against real documented proof. The judge didn't swallow that. My lawyer showed evidence that she was deliberately trying to deceive the court with fabricated threats. The judge granted me exclusive possession right there. He gave her 72 hours to pack her things and vacate the residence. The judge looked directly at my wife and told her that any additional retaliation or damage to the property would result in contempt of court charges. On Saturday afternoon, I returned to the house. Her car was in the driveway. I entered through the garage, and there she was in the living room with boxes everywhere, packing her things. Around noon, she was almost done, and it was then when I noticed she was taking the television, the high-end one, from the living room. I went out and told her that was marital property and that she couldn't take it like that. She said she had bought it. I pointed out she had bought it with marital funds during the marriage. So yes, it was marital property. I took out my phone and took a photo of her while she loaded it into the trunk. She slammed the trunk shut, but just before leaving, I saw she grabbed something from the passenger seat, my work laptop. I ran and told her that was mine, company property. She rolled down the window, said oops, and drove away, straight to Avery's house. Apparently 3 days passed, and Avery called me, but this time her voice was totally different. Quiet, low? She asked me if we could talk. I told her it depended on what about. Turns out my wife stayed with her 2 nights. She said she needed a safe place and all that. Then Wednesday morning, while Avery was at work, my wife left, but not without first taking Avery's emergency credit card from her purse. It was the one she kept for my niece's expenses and had a limit of $3,000. She maxed it out completely in 6 hours. New clothes, electronics, a fancy dinner, and cash advances at 2 different ATMs. Avery's voice broke when she told me she called my wife about it. First she denied it, then she admitted it and said she needed it, that since Avery had taken her side, she thought she would also help her financially. Then she hung up on her. Avery tried to file a police report, but they told her it was complicated because technically she had given her access to the home. I stayed in silence. Avery asked, "Are you still there?" I told her yes. She apologized. She said she should have listened to me, that she thought my wife was the victim, but she turned out to be a liar and a thief. I told her, yes, that is what I have been trying to tell you. She asked me what she should do about the card. I told her the same thing my lawyer told me. Document everything, file every report possible, and take it as an expensive lesson on who to trust. She said she felt like an idiot. I told her she wasn't, that she just wanted to help someone, and that isn't bad. She simply chose the wrong person. Avery said she was going to fix this somehow. I told her she didn't owe me anything. She insisted she did, and that she was going to solve it. I called my lawyer immediately and reported the laptop as stolen. They would wipe it remotely, but still, it was company equipment. Actual theft. I also told him about the credit card. That established a pattern. At my workplace, they weren't so understanding about the laptop. Corporate security got involved, and I had to file a formal police report. On Wednesday morning, I received the call from a detective in the fraud division. He said they had received my report about the stolen laptop and asked me if I could come in the next day to give a statement. Good thing I had moved the money from our joint account to a new personal account when I filed the divorce lawsuit. I transferred my half as soon as the papers were served. I protected myself exactly from this type of situation. Otherwise, she would have left me with a zero balance. The detective wanted to review everything in person. He asked me if I could come in Thursday around 10 a.m. I told him yes. The next morning, I was at the precinct giving my statement about the laptop being company property. She had no legal right to take it. They said they would open an investigation. Then I called my lawyer and brought him up to speed. I explained I had already secured my finances from the beginning. A smart move on my part. He agreed. He said in situations like this, one protects oneself first, and that I had done exactly that. Now it only remained to deal with the laptop theft and the credit card fraud against Avery. My company's legal department confirmed they would press charges for the laptop. The detective formally opened the investigation. An arrest warrant was issued against her. On Friday afternoon, I was at home when she called me screaming, asking if I had really called the police on her. I told her she had stolen my laptop and that it was company property. What did she expect to happen? She said it was just a laptop, that it wasn't a big deal. I explained it was $1,500 worth of equipment with confidential client information. Pretty serious, actually. She said she planned to return it. I responded, "Oh yeah, when? After wiping it? After selling it?" She said she wanted a lawyer. I told her that was a good idea because she was going to need a criminal defense attorney. 2 hours later, Avery texted me saying she had found out about the arrest. She said she couldn't believe what my wife had become and that it really scared her to think what else she might be capable of. She told me she was now on my side for whatever I needed. I replied, "Thanks. I appreciate it." My wife got out on bail Saturday morning. Her parents paid the bond. She called me from their house and told me I had ruined her life. I replied, "You didn't ruin your own life when you stole company property." She started screaming, saying I was vindictive and cruel. I told her she had sought this out herself. Actions have consequences. She hung up. On Monday, my lawyer called me with an update. Her legal situation was complicating the divorce. Her lawyer asked for an extension so she could focus on the criminal charges. That lengthened the process, but the good news was the family court judge now knew all her behavior. The theft, the fraudulent declarations before the court, everything. When we reached trial, this wasn't going to look good for her at all. I spent the next week simply getting into a routine: work, gym, home. For the first time in a long time, everything was quiet, even peaceful. No drama, no fights, no tension, no walking on eggshells. Just me, in an empty house that little by little started feeling like mine again. 3 weeks later, I received a call from her lawyer. Not mine, hers. He said he wanted to speak about a settlement agreement. I asked him why he was calling me directly. He should call my counsel. He said he wanted a preliminary conversation first, off the record. I told him in a divorce nothing is off the record, and to call my lawyer. And I hung up. An hour later, my lawyer called me. Her lawyer had communicated with him correctly. This time they wanted to reach an agreement. She would keep the furniture she had taken. I would keep the house. Each would keep their vehicle. We would divide what was left in the joint account, which wasn't much because I had moved most of my money. Each would keep their own debts. No spousal support or alimony. I asked, and the things she stole? He told me she would try to return what she could. I responded, she stole my laptop and maxed out Avery's credit card. He agreed, but said they were alleging financial hardship. We could fight it in court, but it would cost me more in legal fees. It was probably smarter to accept the settlement and be done with everything. I asked, and the criminal charges? He told me, that is separate. That is between her and the state. It has nothing to do with the divorce. I asked, so she will still face charges even if we reach an agreement? He told me yes. I said, then I accept the agreement. Keep her out of my life. It is over. On Tuesday, the settlement agreement arrived by email. I read it, signed it, and returned it. My lawyer filed it with the court. The judge reviewed it and approved it the next day, and just like that, it was finished. 4 years of marriage ended. It took 8 months from that night at the hotel bar to the final signature, but finally, it was finished. On Wednesday night, I was home when there was a knock on the door. I opened it, and it was Avery. She asked me if she could come in. She entered and told me she was sorry for not having believed me. I told her it was okay. She was just trying to help someone. She shook her head and said no, it wasn't okay. She was my sister and should have supported me from the beginning. She was really sorry. I told her I appreciated it. We sat a moment in silence. Then she asked me when the final hearing was. I told her it was already finished and that we had reached an agreement. She was surprised. She said she was ready to testify if it went to trial. She had everything documented: the credit card theft, the betrayal of her trust, the lies. She was going to tell the judge exactly what kind of person my ex was, that there was a clear pattern of manipulation and theft. I told her I really appreciated it, but that I was simply happy that everything had ended. She nodded, understood it, and then asked me if she and I were good. I thought about it a moment and told her, yes, we are good. She made a mistake and admitted it. That was all I could ask for. She hugged me, told me she loved me, and was proud of how I handled everything. I said thanks. It meant more than she knew. A few weeks later, the detective wrote to me. My ex's criminal case had concluded. She accepted a plea deal and was found guilty of theft. The judge gave her 18 months of probation, 200 hours of community service, and ordered restitution to my company for the laptop. But he said there was more. During the investigation, they found evidence she had been planning to steal even more things. She had screenshots on her phone of my company's inventory system and serial numbers of other equipment. Apparently, the laptop was only the beginning. 2 weeks after that, My company filed a civil lawsuit against her for attempted theft and violation of confidential information. In her event planning job, they fired her. The news spread, and in that industry, reputation is everything. I found out through acquaintances she was now working in a clothing store in the mall, earning maybe a third of what she earned before. Her parents were helping her with rent. For months after the divorce, I ran into one of her friends at the supermarket. Her name was Brielle. She said she knew everything and felt bad. She was there that night at the hotel bar and saw how everything happened. She said, "For what it's worth, I thought what Megan did was really very wrong." She said she mentioned it to her afterward, but Megan didn't want to listen. I told her I appreciated her telling me. She mentioned my ex was having a hard time now. She had lost her job and was living with her parents. I nodded and said, "It is a shame, but it is no longer my problem." That night, Megan called from a new number. I answered without thinking. She said, "Hello," with a low and soft voice. I asked her what she wanted. She said she just wanted to apologize for everything. She knew it wouldn't change anything, but she needed to say it. I leaned back on the couch and said, "Okay." She said she screwed up, that now she knew, that she was stupid and selfish, that she took me for granted and now she was paying the consequences. I told her, "Yes, you are paying for them." Then she asked if maybe we could talk for real, or see each other. And there was the true reason for the call. I told her no. She started begging. "I miss you. I miss us. I made the biggest mistake of my life." I told her she made that decision at the hotel bar. She said now it was different. I replied that she had made many mistakes and that this was only the consequence. She asked me if I really didn't care about anything. I thought about it and told her I cared that she was going through a bad time. I am not a monster, but I wasn't going to get back with her or fix problems she herself created. She disrespected me, lied, stole, and hurt me. Now she was facing the consequences. That is how life works. She said she only needed me. She asked, "Are you really going to leave me alone?" I told her she wanted to be single, and now she was, permanently. She started crying and said she had no one. Her friends wouldn't speak to her. Her family was disappointed. She had no one left. I told her, "Sounds like you burned a lot of bridges. I can't live without you. I am sorry. I would do whatever you asked," she continued. "I was just trying not to miss opportunities." Well, congratulations. You didn't miss a single opportunity. Instead, you lost everything else. She stayed silent. Then the call cut off. A week later, the civil lawsuit was dismissed. My company decided it wasn't worth moving forward. They had already obtained restitution through the criminal case. That was enough for them. 6 months after the divorce, I was in a very good place. Then I received a message from Brielle, my ex's friend, who had been at the hotel bar that night. She said she had been thinking about writing to me for a while. She wanted to grab a coffee if I was willing. No pressure. I thought, why not? We met that weekend. She apologized again for not having said anything that night. She said she had felt guilty since then. We ended up talking for 3 hours. She was a project manager at a logistics company. Smart, independent, zero drama. At the end, I asked her if she wanted to do it again another day. She said yes, that she would like that. A year after the divorce, honestly, I was living my best life. I got promoted at work with a good raise. Brielle and I were already officially together and talking about moving in. The house was fixed and for the first time really looked good. I was in the best physical shape in years. She moved in 2 months later. She brought her cat. I brought my peace of mind. We made the place ours. New memories. A clean start. It was then when my ex started sending messages. Unknown number. She said she had heard I was dating Brielle. She called her a cheap copy. She said I was replacing her with someone inferior just to hurt her. I didn't respond. She wrote again the next day. She said Brielle had always been jealous of her and that I was pathetic for lowering myself. I didn't respond either. The third message arrived at 2 a.m. A long vent about how I had moved on so fast, how clearly I had never loved her, and how I was rubbing everything in her face by dating her friend. She said I was cruel and heartless, and that Brielle was using me to get revenge on her for old drama. I read it, didn't respond, and went back to sleep. She kept writing every few days, sometimes angry, sometimes sad, sometimes trying to be nice, asking how I was, saying she missed me, and then returning to insult Brielle, saying that she was trashy, that I was settling, and that we weren't going to last. I never responded to anything. I blocked her number and all her social media accounts and told Brielle to do the same. A few months later, I ran into Megan at the supermarket. She saw me with Brielle. She went pale, staying frozen in the pasta aisle. I gave her a polite nod with my head and kept walking. Brielle squeezed my hand and asked me if I was okay. I told her yes, that I was fine. I felt nothing. She said, "Good, that is how it should be." We finished shopping and went to the parking lot. We were loading the bags into the trunk when I heard someone say my name. I turned and Megan was walking fast towards us. Brielle tensed up, but I kept calm. Megan stopped a few steps away, ignored Brielle's existence completely, and asked if we could talk a moment, just a minute. I told her, "No, we are good. There is nothing to talk about." She came a little closer and said she missed me, that she thought of me every day, and that seeing me there had made her realize she never stopped loving me. I told her that was her problem, not mine. She tried to grab my arm. I pulled away. Brielle was already opening the passenger door, watching everything. Then, Megan tried to lean in as if she was going to kiss me. I raised my hand and stopped her in her tracks. I told her to go home, that she was embarrassing herself. Her eyes filled with tears. She said she only wanted one last chance to prove to me she had changed. I told her I didn't care if she had changed or not. I had already moved on. She looked at last at Brielle and then looked back at me. She asked if I was really choosing her over what we had. I told her I wasn't choosing anything, that I had already chosen a year ago when I filed for divorce. This was not a competition. She lost me the moment she called me her best friend in that hotel bar. Everything else after that was just paperwork. She started crying right there in the parking lot. She said she was sorry and that she would do anything. I told her, "There is nothing to do. It is over. It has been over for a long time." I got in the car. Brielle stayed quiet a moment and then said that had been intense. I responded, "Yes, it was pathetic." She asked me if I felt bad. I thought about it and said, "No, not a bit." She nodded and said, "Good, that is exactly how you should feel now." Megan is working in catering and living with her parents. And I am here, happy, successful, with someone who really respects me. She got exactly what she asked for, a life without me in it. It turned out to be the worst thing that could have happened to her and the best thing that could have happened to me. Comment. Sometimes, walking away is the strongest act of self-love you can commit to. Real respect isn't just about big gestures, but about how someone treats you when they think it doesn't matter. When you truly value a connection, you don't look for better options because you know what you have is already enough. We all make choices, but we must also be brave enough to accept that every choice either builds or breaks the trust others place in us. Healing doesn't mean you have to stay angry forever. It means you prioritize your own peace over the chaos. It is crucial to surround yourself with people who uplift you and respect the truth rather than enabling bad behavior. A fresh start is not a failure, but an opportunity to build a life that aligns with your dignity and happiness. I hope you remember that you deserve to be someone's priority, not just a backup plan or a convenience. Let's use this as a reminder to treat our partners with kindness and to stand firm when our boundaries are crossed. Stay strong, take care of your heart, and never settle for less than the respect you give to others. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.